Hello, this is Thomas, K4SWL, and today I'm kind of doing something different. I'm not out in the field about to do a park activation. I am out in the field to talk about two very interesting portable transceivers, though, the Elecraft KX2 and the lab599 Discovery TX-500. Now, I took delivery of the TX-500, I guess it's been almost 2 weeks ago, and I posted a quick video about receiving it and some of my initial thoughts about this radio. I initially reviewed this radio back in, I think I had it back in late August of 2020. I produced a review, a very comprehensive review that appeared in the Spectrum Monitor magazine a couple months later. And I'll try to link to the review of this radio on my other website, the SW Welling Post. The thing is, I only had this radio for 1 week. I did use it very intensively that 1 week. I took it to 7 different parks and activated those parks with the radio to get the maximum amount of time I could with the radio. And I used it a whole lot in the shack as well. The KX2, I made a review of it back in 2016, a few months after it was released by Elecraft. I have owned the radio since then. I own both of these radios now. I've purchased both of them. And the Elecraft KX2 is definitely a benchmark among portable radios. I mean, this is and has been my very favorite portable transceiver for a lot of different reasons. I also love the TX-500. As I said, I've bought both of them. However, since taking delivery of this radio, I have gotten an extraordinary amount of questions from readers, mainly asking, which should I buy, the Elecraft KX2 or the TX-500? And what I'm going to do today is try to address both of these radios, talk about their virtues, their pluses and minuses, and let you make the decision. Because frankly, especially I think when it comes to portable radios, a lot of it's kind of subjective. It has to do with the operator, our operating styles, where we operate, our modes we use, you know, the accessories we plan to use and the antennas we plan to use. I mean, all of that factors in. And no two portable operators are identical. So one of these radios may fit your needs better than the others, and we'll try to go through that and talk about it right now. First of all, both of these radios are very portable. They are lightweight. They are, I mean, you can have this in a backpack or in a travel bag. You'd never know that either one of these radios are in there. They're both very lightweight, very portable. They're also very, very efficient. These are QRP radios with output power around 10, 12 watts. They're both very efficient with batteries. The TX-500 is slightly more efficient than the KX2, but it's a negligible amount, to be honest. Both of them are very efficient. You can operate for really long periods of time with a decent battery like this 3 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery I've got from Bioenno. I use this all the time with both of these radios, and it works brilliantly. I can do a number of activations just on that one battery and one charge. That's what you're getting with a QRP radio. You get that efficiency and that portability. And these are more compact than about any other general coverage transceiver on the market. Now, the really interesting thing is, I know why people want to compare them. The price at present, here in May of 2021, the price is identical. The KX2 and the TX-500 in the United States cost $899.95 US. And I should say that's for the base unit KX2. So the KX2 without the paddles on the bottom, the KX2 without internal ATU or anything else, which actually is basically configured the same way as the TX-500 when you purchase it for that. So they basically are, in terms of price, apples to apples. The only difference being that, you know, with the TX-500, you do get a speaker mic with that price. And I'll go into that a little bit more, why they include this. But other than that, you know, you're getting the same thing for the same price. But the radios are quite different, and we'll kind of go into that now. First of all, people, especially if you're doing portable operations, you are interested in any kind of option that can be internal to the radio, thus saving you space, saving you extra accessories you connect up, that sort of thing, and saving weight sometimes. Well, the KX2 actually has an internal ATU. So inside the unit, you can get an internal ATU option, which I think is around $200 US at present, and it integrates seamlessly with the radio. So the radio and the internal antenna tuner all are in this box. The lab599 TX-500, they don't currently have an antenna tuner option. Now, there never will be one that's internal to this radio. There's just no room in there for it. You can see the thin profile this radio has. However, there's a company, I believe it's a project by, I think it's Delta Lima 4 Kilo Alpha. That's a little amplifier and antenna tuner that pops on the back of this. And it's a neat little project. I'll try to link to it if I can, maybe in the description below. I think it's a 60-watt amplifier maybe with an internal antenna tuner. And that is not a lab599 product. That's done by a community member, which is kind of cool because both of these radios have very active third-party community members that make things for these radios. With the KX2, there are people who make side panels, heat sinks, all kinds of things. And it appears that this is going to happen as well with the TX-500. Also, internal batteries. There is no internal battery in this form factor of the TX-500, none at all. However, they are producing right now a battery pack that will pop on the back of this, and it'll basically increase the width of this by 2 times. And the really cool thing about the TX-500 battery pack is it has 6 removable, I think they're 18650 lithium cells, and I think that's genius. I mean, that's a great way of doing a battery pack. The cells will be very accessible. There'll be kickstands on the back of the thing. I'll try to link to that. I think PileUp has this in their blog post. Also, Julian at, I think it's Survival Tech Nord, or Survival Radio Nord. Sorry, Julian, if I've gotten your name wrong there on the channel. But he has an excellent little video talking about this battery pack. And I'd also strongly encourage you, if you're a digital mode operator, to check out Julian's channel with QRP radios, because he has a very strong focus on digital modes. That's something that I really don't cover very much myself. But he will be able to talk to you about the virtues of some of the cat control and data control and everything of these. Now, the Elecraft KX2 has an internal battery option that is, I think it's $100 maybe for the battery and the charger. I may be wrong about that. Double check Elecraft's website, but it's basically this pack right here, and there's an external charger that goes with it. You do have to open the back of this radio and pull the battery out and put it in. I don't find that to be a problem at all. There are some speaker cables here you've got to watch out for, but you know, I have probably opened and closed this thing 400 times, probably way more than that, and I've never had an issue with it. I have my original battery, and this battery has been, I've easily taken this thing to the field a couple hundred times, and the battery it still operates wonderfully. Actually, I can get an hour to an hour and 15 minutes of 10-watt output using that battery, and then it goes down to 5 watts for a while longer. So I have no idea what the performance will be like on the battery pack for the TX-500. I suspect it'll be excellent, because that's a lot of lithium cells, that's a lot of capacity, and I expect a single run for a very long time. It only draws like 110 milliamps on receive, so it's very, very efficient. I'm really looking forward to checking out that pack, actually. I think that's going to be a really, really cool addition to this radio. But right now, you can get this with the Elecraft KX2, and that's one of the really cool things about it. Now, frequency coverage. This is something that could be a very important factor to some people. Neither one of these radios, like the Yaesu FT817, 818, or the new ICOM IC705, neither one of these radios do 2 meter and 440 coverage, or 70 centimeter coverage. They don't do VHF, UHF. However, the Discovery TX-500 covers all of the HF bands from 160 up to 6 meters, The KX2 covers from 80 meters to 10 meters, so it doesn't have 160 or 6. Frankly, it's not a really big deal to me. In the field, most of the time I'm running somewhere between 40, I'm usually on 40 meters and up, maybe up to 15 meters. It's rare that I'll sometimes do 10 meters if things are looking really good on the bands, but it's actually fairly rare. One of the other factors that I really look at in radios like this is what the broadcast band coverage is like. Now, that's not a big deal to a lot of other people, frankly. A lot of other people, I know they only really are interested in ham bands with these, but I like doing broadcast band listening. And that is one of the real strengths of the TX-500. If you like to listen to shortwave radio broadcasts or medium wave broadcasts, you can do that. It goes down to 500 kilohertz. The AM band filter is nice and wide. You can open it up and it sounds great. It works really well. The KX2, it doesn't have full medium wave coverage and it's attenuated. So really you're only going to hear most of the blowtorch local medium wave or AM broadcast band stations, as opposed to the TX-500, where you'll be able to actually, you could maybe even do medium wave DXing with this. I've had a good time listening to medium wave on this radio. The filter width, the AM filter width on the KX2 is, I think, a maximum of 5.2 kilohertz. It sounds pretty good when you add in the audio effects. If you have headphones in, it gives kind of a stereo-like effect. It sounds nice with a little delay. The TX-500, of course, though, that it has nice wide filters and they're adjustable. So that's one factor to consider if that's something that's interesting to you. The displays on both of these radios are very nice. They're very high contrast and easy to read outdoors. Now you can't tell here because of the way this is, the way this looks, but I'm not in, I've got a bit of glare here on both of these screens, but you can see here with the TX-500, it's very easy to see. It's a monochrome display. Same thing with the Elecraft KX2. KX2 is probably slightly easier to see. It is designed for, viewing in the field, but both of them are very nice. I would say that at a glance, the KX2 is slightly better than the TX-500, but frankly, you get a lot more information on the TX-500. In fact, it has a spectrum display that is very effective. Now, you can't see it here because I don't have it hooked up to an antenna right now for it to read anything, but the spectrum display is very, very effective, and it's very accurate and dynamic, and I like it. So for people like spectrum displays, as you'd find in the in something like the ICOM IC705, for example, this may be a nice compromise. It's monochrome, it doesn't have a waterfall, but the spectrum display will show you what's around your station when you're operating. It'll also help you find a free frequency when you're in the field, which is kind of nice. The KX2, I think, will, well, no, I don't think it hooks up to a pan adapter. The KX3, its older and larger sibling, will do that. Weatherproofing. If you're looking for a weatherproof radio, that would be the TX-500. There's no weatherproofing on the KX2. Now, to me, that's not... A lot of field operators really consider that to be very, very high on the priority list as weatherproofing, but so far there have been no amateur radio transceivers with proper water resistance built into them or weatherproofing. But the TX-500 is sort of the newest one to do that. In fact, to my knowledge, it's the only amateur radio transceiver with weatherproofing. It's not meant to be immersed in water, but if it's caught out in the rain or snow or something and things melt on it, it's not going to be a problem. It is designed and sealed for that. So if weatherproofing is what you're looking for, that's just something that you're going to get with a TX-500 that you won't really get with the KX2. Although, if you're a careful operator, it's not going to really it's never been an issue for me with any other portable transceiver. To me, if a transceiver is small enough, I can do things to protect it from the weather if I get caught in the rain. But I do love the flexibility of not having to worry about it with the TX-500. I really just don't worry about it at all. I just protect the microphone, and I usually stick my battery in, like in my backpack or something like that, so that it's sitting out, but nothing else is. Ruggedness, again, the TX-500 is definitely the radio for that. It is CNC machined aluminum, I mean, with a nice coating on it, and it is just amazing. I was telling a friend recently that I honestly think I could turn this upside down and stand on it, and it wouldn't hurt it. It is incredibly, incredibly rugged, like military-grade ruggedness here, in terms of just the chassis and how it's put together. It's beautifully engineered and designed. The KX2 is not as rugged. However, most of the parts on it, like the encoder and the pots and all the knobs and everything, they wouldn't be very hard to replace if you cracked one or broke one. And it's not a huge factor. In fact, if you broke the display protector there on the top, that piece of plastic, you could replace that very, very easily. Probably with the lab599, because it's sealed for weather protection, that would be a little bit bigger deal. And that does worry me a little bit about this radio, is if it fell on a rock or something. However, I don't see that happening. I think that this radio is as rugged as any you'll ever find on the amateur radio market, and that is definitely something that would maybe push you toward that radio rather than the KX2. Built-in speakers, TX-500 does not have one. That's the reason it ships with a speaker mic, is because it does not have a built-in speaker. I'm sure that that was a calculated risk when they were designing this radio, but since they don't have to include a speaker on it, it makes it a lot easier to weatherproof the thing. The KX2 has a built-in speaker, and I would say that this built-in speaker is better than its larger brother, the KX3. I like it. It's not amazing. It's not going to blow you away with its audio quality, but I've got plenty of videos out there using this in the field, and you can hear the audio quality of the speaker. And it's fine. It works pretty well. So just keep that in mind. And also the performance specs in general are going to be very, very similar with these radios. I can tell you that having used them in the field, I would have no preference of one over the other in terms of performance, the receiver, or any of the other factors with it. In terms of reception. And if you look on Rob Sherwood's receiver test data, you'll probably find the KX2 slightly higher on that list than the TX-500, but I can tell you from field use, I don't think you'd ever notice the difference. Now, for CW operators, the KX2 is definitely higher on the list when it comes to CW operation if you like full break-in QSK. It uses pin diode switching, and there's no relay clicking, no nothing like that. The TX-500 uses relays, so there's a little bit of relay click that you can hear in the chassis. It's not a big deal to me at all, but it does not have full break-in QSK. It has sort of semi-break-in. You can hear in between words. I have it set to the quickest recovery time, which I think is either 200 or 100 milliseconds, and so it does create a lot of back and forth between the audio of receiving and transmitting. I don't mind that. I can deal with that. I could turn it down so it does a lot less than that, maybe put it to 400, 500 milliseconds, and the relay wouldn't click in between characters on this. But in terms of CW operation in general, unless you really want, if you want pin diode switching, then that's the way to go, the KX2. If you don't need pin diode switching and you're used to hearing relays, like say in an 817 or even in the 705 has relays, but it does do full break-in QSK, the 705 does. For CW operation, this is a fine radio. It's not a big deal, but if you want pin diode switching, it does not have it. The KX2 does. In terms of ergonomics, I think both are very good. You could operate either one of these radios probably with some modest gloves on. The KX2, it takes a little more time, I think, to get used to the KX2 than it does the TX-500. This has a lot of menus and things that are on the screen. Some of these menu items are kind of tiny. Like, I need my reading glasses to read some of these, personally. I think most people with good eyes don't need to do that. But keep that in mind. But there's a lot of information on here, and the buttons change based on how you have the menu settings or how you switch things around with these. And you've got buttons on the top which control some things. You have buttons on the bottoms which control, and you can scroll back and forth with these. Very, very simple, very easy to use. You can pretty much pick up this radio and use it without a manual. The KX2, you really do need to, there's a small learning curve with the KX2, but if you've used the KX3 or the K3 or any of the other Elecraft radios, it's very similar. They're kind of ergonomic ecosystem is very similar between their radios. So I don't think that's a really big factor at the end of the day. But I like the ergonomics in both radios, and I think they're fine. Direct frequency entry is something that the KX2 can do that you can't do with the TX-500. There is actually a built-in keyboard. If you see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, 7, 8, you can actually do direct frequency entry on this. Very, very clever feature. You can't do that on the TX-500. Not a big deal. It does have dynamic tuning, and you can change the tuning rates, and it's not a huge consideration for me. I usually use direct frequency entry when I'm doing shortwave radio listening, to be honest. The KX2 has a built-in mic, and the TX500 does not, of course. So you can actually use this without attaching a microphone. There's a little mic that's built into this, and that comes in very handy if you're doing SOTA or something, or if you forget your microphone. Of course, it takes an external microphone as well. Also, you can attach paddles. They make paddles for the KX2, the KXPD2s, which is what these are, and they work great. So you can attach it to the radio, put it on your clipboard. Takes up no space. You can't really do that with the TX500 unless someone makes, an attachable paddle of some sort in the future, which could very well happen. Who knows? Cat control and for digital modes and everything are very similar between both rigs. I think this uses a Kenwood command set. They have been steadily improving this with the TX500. The KX2 has been out a long time, so people have been using both of these radios for digital modes. Neither one of them are their own sound card, sort of like an ICOM IC705. You can hook it directly up to a computer and run a lot of the digital modes with it because the computer identifies the radio as a sound card. That doesn't happen with either one of these. Probably for optimal performance, you'd want to use some sort of sound card interface. I'm almost positive about that with the TX500, but I probably need to confirm that better. I have not operated this on digital mode since last August, so I really need to double check on that. The footprint, very similar. This one probably overall is a smaller footprint when you include the fact that it has an internal antenna tuner option and a built-in battery. It is a little bit smaller overall, but this is an interesting footprint, and I find that I can stick it in my backpack like so easily. It's just so flat. It fits in there. But of course you have more accessories you need to attach to it. It also has these 12 millimeter multi-pin connectors. They use these on the TX500 for weatherproofing purposes, whereas on the KX2 it's more like 1/8 inch and various types of analog plugs that they use on there. And so all the connectors come off both sides of the radio. It's very similar. But you do need these special connectors. These are not proprietary. These are used in aviation and military communications equipment quite a lot. And there are vendors out there that have those. If you and kind of pulling all this together, I mean, these are just some of the features and things and the comparisons that you would find here. Keep in mind, I should say, Elecraft has been around since the late 1990s, and they're a company with an excellent reputation for customer service. lab599 is new to the, to the world of amateur radio, to my knowledge, and they've been very responsive so far. But they're a small company. Elecraft's a much bigger company, bigger economies of scale, more customer service people, that sort of thing. lab599 is still very new. So if, just keep that in mind. You are kind of investing and taking a risk in a sense with any new company. But I can tell you that lab599, they have got a very big customer base so far for this radio. So I suspect they're going to be around for a long time. I'm certainly willing to take the risk. But I have only been completely pleased with Elecraft's service over the years. They've been amazing. If you're using these radios for summits on the air, either one of these would work fine. It would be more about weatherproofing. If you're using it for parks on the air or WWFF or anything like that, any other portable operations, both of these would work fine. Really, and using them in the shack, either one of these would work fine for that as well. I mean, they're very, very similar in how they function for any portable application or for being used in the shack. If you want 160 meters and 6 meters, then the TX500, of course, as we said before. There's no question there. if you're looking for, I really kind of call the KX2 a Swiss Army knife of a radio. It doesn't have 160 and 6 meters, but I can go anywhere with this radio with the internal battery and the internal antenna tuner, and I know I don't need any more than this box and maybe this kit that I have kind of kitted out with everything that I take with the KX2. When I have all that with me, I know that it can handle pretty much any situation I throw at it. The TX-500, you're going to need some external accessories like, a battery. You'll need, to attach an external key and all those things. Still, not a big deal. We're talking the difference between a few extra accessories that you attach that are lightweight, that'll fit in your backpack anyway. But at the end of the day, this is basically an entire shack in a box as it is, and that's hard to beat. I know of no other radio out there right now that really has everything the KX2 does in terms of those accessories and features that are built in, at least as an option. Even the ICOM IC705, it doesn't have an internal antenna tuner, so that's something to consider. I have been using this radio with the Elecraft T1 antenna tuner, which is fantastic and does a great job tuning up pretty much any antenna I throw on it. However, you can also pair this with a nice resonant antenna, and you don't even need to worry about an ATU, which I do a lot with the KX2 anyway. So hopefully this has helped you a little bit kind of think about the differences between these two radios. To be honest, either one is really a solid choice, and I wouldn't worry too much about the performance on either radio. I wouldn't worry really too much about the form factor. Both of them are very compact and small, and we're talking about the difference between really one that sort of has this flat profile and the KX2, which is kind of more like a small brick. I don't know. Both are very compact, very easy to take with you, and work really, really well. So you can't really go wrong. Now, if you've got any questions about these radios, especially very specific questions about maybe the differences between the two, feel free to comment below and let me know what you think. If you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer those the best I can. And hopefully there are other users of both of these radios that may have comments and can help us out. Again, thank you very much for listening to my take on the differences between these two radios. And if you like this content and the channel, feel free to subscribe. Thanks again, and 7 3s until next time.